Please be seated. Good morning. How is everybody? Are you having a good summer? You know, my brother used to say when he was in the advertising business, when the summer came, he'd say it publicly, now that we're alone. And so it is nice to be here with you on such a beautiful, beautiful morning. To those of you who may not know me, I'm Jeff Beebe. I'm an assisting priest here at Bethesda-by-the-Sea and parishioner for some 50 plus years. And I'm married, of course, to the associate rector, Susan Beebe, so I'm kind of Mr. Susan Beebe up here this morning. When William beautifully read, you guys are all doing a great job, the passage from Isaiah, why do you spend your money for that which is not bread and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Man, I could preach to myself, William, on that for 2 weeks straight, I tell you, because it's a lesson that I have to learn over and over and over again. That's a lesson for a different day, but it still is about bread. There's a lot of talk about bread today. You know, this is the feeding of the 5,000, which is an important story in Scripture, and so it resonates, has resonated through Jesus' day, and it resonates through our time today. And so we want to drill down on that, and I want to give you two important takeaways to leave with today, to ruminate on during the week. Ruminate is another way of saying think about and pray about and talk to your friends, your wives, your peers about. So we'll do that at the end. So Susan and I just got back from Quogue, New York. And I don't know if you guys know Quogue, New York. There's up in New York, there's like the Hamptons. It's all kind of ritzy, stuck up kind of places. There's West Hampton, there's Bridgehampton, there's Southampton, there's East Hampton, there's Hamptons all over the place up there. And next to one of them is a place called Quogue. And Quogue is kind of a little more low key, but it's still very elite. And so Susan gave a blockbuster message last week up at the Church of the Atonement, which was, they never heard nothing like that before there, I'll tell you that. And it was just very well received. And there were a number of parties. It was just they're very gracious people. And there are a number of parties that, for us to receive us and to welcome us. And invariably at the dinners, the parties, the question came up, how did you and Susan meet? They always thought that we had met sort of at Yale Divinity School, which is logical, but it's not true. So I thought, before we dig down into scriptures today, that I'd tell you how I met my wife. A little walk through personal history. And this is now many years ago. Susan was a young ingenue who was working in Palm Beach and lived nearby. And I, of course, was coming to this parish for some time. But, we were both sort of in the process of saying yes to Christ, but didn't, of course, know each other yet. And I would go to a Bible study at Loy Anderson's bank. I don't know if you guys remember Loy Anderson. He was kind of a guy, a man about town, a very good banker, and a kind of a guy who, he had a Bible study every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock on Worth Avenue at the bank, the Palm Beach National Bank, which became Colonial Bank, which became Truist Bank, which will become something else, I'm sure of shortly. But Loy would have, and actually four Episcopal seminarians emerged from this group. So it was quite an august group. So I was going to it, and then there was a guy going to it with me, a friend of mine named Michael Williams, who's a wonderful man, Jamaican, and he owned a place. Some of you old timers might remember a place called the Dairy Spa in West Palm Beach. It was a soft serve ice cream company, and thanks be to God, my wife loves ice cream. And so she stopped in to get an ice cream cone, and Michael invited her to the Bible study, which is, he's an evangelist. This is what he does. And so Susan showed up a week or so later at Loy Anderson's Bible study. I was there. Susan sat next to me, and we discovered that we were both sort of what they call cradle Episcopalians, and so that was unusual, especially in that environment. And so Susan left and came back like a day or a week or two later, and then Michael said, I'm getting married. We're talking after the Bible study was over, and Michael said, you should come to my wedding. You know, this is what a bride loves, people inviting, you know, third parties to their weddings. And so I blurted out, I was standing there, I said, why don't you go with me? And so we went, and I was Michael's best man. I mean, I had arranged table setting, but I left that to sit with Susan, and we had a very lovely time at the wedding and had a terrific time at the reception, and it was a wonderful evening, and at least I fell in love dancing to the Unchained melody. Towards the end of the evening, I dropped Susan off and at her home, and then the next morning we had a date to go to church at Bethesda-by-the-Sea. And as they say, the rest is history. So, and it was very interesting about this is that people would also ask, they said, what was it that attracted you? What was it that clicked like that for you, Jeff? And I said, I hope it clicked for my wife eventually, but it was what really attracted me to Susan was, of course, her beauty, her intelligence, her humor, her wit, and she has terrifically clear thinking. Organizational skills and creative energy are unusual combinations in one person. But see, mostly Susan introduced a new way of looking at life to me. She brought Christ's vision to me because she was seeing the world in her walk with Jesus through his eyes. And when I could latch on to that, I began to see the world in a new way, in a way that Jesus sees the world. In other words, I started to live my life as Susan lived her life with a kingdom perspective. And that's a different view of life than human perspective. Susan brought an idea of Christian dating. She brought an idea of Christian marriage. She brought an idea of Christian family. She brought an idea of Christian business. And man, this is like mother's milk to me because it really was something that I locked onto myself. And we both were, as we have both said further and further yes to God, God has blessed us in our marriage, in our family, in our business, in our ministry, in every aspect of life. So we have to renew ourselves almost daily to see the world through Christ's eyes, to see the world and every aspect of it from the kingdom perspective. And when we say that we're an arranged marriage, that's what I mean. So now, okay, you ready, Philomena? You ready? We're going back to business here. Let's get the gospel read. Okay, just the gospel is terrific. Now this is the feeding of the 5,000, and this is the only miracle story except the resurrection story that's in all four gospels. And when something's in all four gospels, 1, 2, 3, 4, you pay attention. Okay? That's what Jesus is on about here. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd. He had compassion on them, for they cured their sick. And this is great because Jesus ministered to the felt needs. He saw what the shortcomings were, but he brought his perspective and cured. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." See, this is human vision. This is seeing deprivation. This is seeing how the world is. And there was no food. It was going to be a difficult patch. It was going to be a rough night. There was no food. What are we going to do? Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." And what Jesus is doing here, he's beginning to really introduce the idea of the kingdom perspective. He's telling his disciples, he's giving them tough love here. You make it happen. And he's saying, I'm here, you're seeing deprivation, I'm seeing plenty. You're seeing starvation, I'm seeing feeding. You're seeing less, I'm seeing more. What do the disciples do here? Of course they reply, huh? What? We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. Again, a very human perspective, very understandable. It's starting to get difficult. And Jesus says, bring them here to me, orders them to sit on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed the loaves, broke the bread, and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. Does that sound familiar? What does it sound like? The Eucharist, exactly right. You were going to say that, weren't you, Tom? Yes, sir. This is the Holy Eucharist. This is what Jesus is doing. He's blessing, he's multiplying, he's feeding. And he goes on to, and the gospel goes on to say, and all and ate were filled, the abundance. And they took up what was left of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full, and those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. A great miracle story. Now, what do we take from this today? We take two things. The first is this: there's a kingdom perspective and there is a human perspective. And what Jesus is telling us is take the human perspective and supplant it with the kingdom perspective. See the world as I see it, Jesus says. Act in the. And this is lesson number one: from scarcity to abundance, from futility to faith, from material wealth to true wealth. Again, important, from material wealth to true wealth. Second takeaway, beloved, empowerment. Learn from those with a kingdom perspective. Learn from those with a kingdom perspective. And you can do it, just stand next to them, man. Just breathe the same air as those people. Come to church, come to Bible studies, come to classes, learn the perspective of the kingdom. If you're in a 12-step program, you learn how it was, you learn how it is, and you learn how it's going to be. From disorderliness to orderliness in your own culture, in your own society, in your own person. This is lesson number one. Learn about the kingdom perspective. The second lesson is be that kingdom perspective. Be that vision and perspective for those who don't yet have it. Minister to those who need to see the world through Jesus' eyes, not their own. And this is the gist of what ministry is about. Bring the peace, bring the healing, bring the wholeness that Jesus brought to the feeding of the 5,000. Bring that abundance where there is scarcity. Bring that healing where there is illness. Bring that sobriety where there is drunkenness. Bring that happiness where there is sadness. Bring that health where there is illness. This is the vision of Christ for us, and this is the vision of Christ for you to take and be the light to others. And lastly, beloved, as Jesus compels us in this gospel, you feed them. Amen.